Harry and Meghan Markle have finally said the quiet part out loud. All of these things that they are doing, Oprah, Netflix, Spotify, the book, so many other things, are essentially all ways to try to blackmail the royal family into giving them the security apparatus that they want. That is what Harry and Meghan admit in this latest People magazine article. It is shocking some of the things that they say, that basically Harry sold his whole family out because him and Meghan Markle are so stinking important in their own minds that they need to have this big security detail. And if they can't get that from the UK government, the US government, the Canadian government, why, wouldn't you know it? They're going to sell their entire family down the creek just to get it. Yes, oh yes, it is just shameless, horrid behavior from Harry and Meghan. And although most of this article from People magazine is focused on Prince Harry, 100% Meghan Markle is behind this too, because they are obviously a couple. They do things together, and including this blackmailing the royal family and the UK government because Harry thinks he is as important as his brother. Well, Harry, the reality check myself and many others have tried to give you over the years is that you are not as important as your brother. This is kind of what goes on within a constitutional monarchy. If you are not in the main line of succession, wouldn't you know it, you get less important over time. But in Harry and Meghan's minds, they are the most important people in the world. They've had threats against them. I mean, obviously, it could be entirely possible that other members of the royal family have had threats against them too, including Her Majesty the Queen, who had a gentleman try to scale the walls of Windsor Castle to assassinate her around Christmas in 2021. So that was her final Christmas on this earth after Harry and Meghan had done their Oprah Winfrey interview. And the gentleman who was doing that was reciting a historical incident of racism. Yes, Harry and Meghan are the villains in their own piece, but they refuse to acknowledge that. So instead, they are going to blackmail any way they can to get the royal family, who does not control who gets security and who doesn't, by the way, blackmailing them in order to get the security that the royal family cannot give them. This is stupid. It is asinine. And it is just an example of a bitter, angry, spiteful, vengeful couple who are unable to live with their own mistakes. Megxit was Harry and Meghan's decision. Nobody else's. No one else in the world told them that this was a good idea. They were the ones who decided to do it. They have to live with the consequences of it. And the UK government can't really fund their security because they offer nothing to the UK government. But not only that, Harry and Meghan want to make you anywhere in the world pay for their security as well, especially here in the United States. They want the world to treat them special. They want certain security measures taken for them, and they want other people to pay for it. Well, I call BS on that entire story. I think it is ridiculous, and it is so incredibly frustrating that People magazine, which has published this story, is not pushing back and clarifying some of this idiocy. So we are going to dissect this today because there's so much misinformation and half truths in what Harry and Meghan are telling People magazine, and I will call out People magazine and say they don't really hold them to account and to task either. And that is why there's so much toxicity and misinformation in the royal space, because guess what? The journalists who are covering this aren't doing it, especially People magazine. They just take the story from the Harry and Meghan and they just run with it. So we are going to go over this today. But if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network, my name is Brittany. I provide you all compelling royal commentary. So if you guys want to hit that subscribe button, that would be absolutely fantastic. I would love to have you back. And this one will be maybe a little bit long because we have to go into this article in a little bit of detail here. But if you love my jewelry, especially these gorgeous diamond hoop earrings and this cross necklace as well, these are both from Anna Lucia Diamonds, who creates lab created diamond jewelry. It is absolutely gorgeous and incredible. I'm actually waiting on a new pair of earrings to come in, and I'm very, very excited. I can't wait to show you guys. So if you're interested in that, you can save 20% by using code ROYAL20, and you get some fabulous jewelry for a great price. And then you can help support the work we are doing here at Royal News Network, because I have been watching royals for over 10 years. And what has shocked me over time is how Harry and Meghan do these little half-truths and twist things that make the broader public more confused about what's actually going on behind the scenes. Harry and Meghan gaslight people. They're trying to rewrite history constantly. I mean, this is even the fourth reason why they've left the royal family, as somebody on Twitter pointed out. They're doing this not because they wanted to get out of the royal family, but no, because they needed money to pay for the security once they left the royal family and realized, oh yeah, by the way, because you've left the royal family and are no longer working for the UK government, we don't really want to cover your security. I mean, I think that would have been basic logic. So of course they are completely shocked. And their answer to this is to blackmail the royal family. That is essentially what this article sets out to say, is that basically Harry wants to blackmail his family. Uh-huh. And now they try to placate it as it's Charles's problem. They're no longer speaking. The real reason why Prince Harry and King Charles are no longer speaking. But it's because Harry wants something the royal family can't give him. And that is security. And that is because it's determined by the government. So when it comes to United States, we have the Secret Service. The Secret Service protects members of the presidential family, extended members. So when it comes to, let's say, the Biden family, except for perhaps the granddaughter who they don't acknowledge because, Hunter Biden got a little frisky with a stripper. So, anyways, I don't know what her situation is, but all the children and grandchildren get security. And when it comes to the Trump family, Trump, his kids, and I'm not sure about the grandkids, but I know his kids get some security as well. Because when you are the president of a country, you are making big dynastic decisions that impact the world. And because of that, you need additional security. So when you decide to bomb somebody, when you decide to make a certain trade agreement, and all these sorts of things can result in long-term ramifications, which is why they get security. Royals are different though, because royals, although they are head of state, really, in reality, they're mostly figureheads. They hold no real constitutional power. And as such, they're not doing policy in the same way. So, in that respect, they don't need this huge security apparatus. And that's the case with Harry and Meghan here. He is now the fifth in line to the throne. As soon as the Wales' kids start having kids, he'll be down to 10, 15. That's sort of how the royal sphere works. If you're not in that main line, as you just get bumped further down as more children are born. Now, granted, Harry and Meghan are 10 or 15 years away from that, but it is coming. It is 100% coming. And so they are not constitutionally relevant. That's why the Wales' children do get 24-hour protection, because they are constitutionally relevant. Because as they get older, they'll become more and more into their roles and they'll have more and more influence. Whereas Harry, in reality, influence would diminish over time. But Harry doesn't understand that. And he has made a lot of stupid decisions in the last several years, and to the point where he thinks that because he himself, this is a self-inflicted wound, Harry and Meghan have made themselves more unlikable. We now must offer them security because they have made themselves unlikable. It's just so illogical, irrational, and quite frankly, it makes them look stupid. They need to stop this. This is not helping them. This is making them look terrible. Yes, the people who don't really know what's going on buy this story, I'm sure, but this is not reality. This is fantasy. These are the delusional ramblings, in my opinion, of a dim prince who has never been told no in his life and has no concept of cause and consequence. He has no concept of this. Neither does Meghan, apparently. And honestly, as well, I think those kind of things make them look stupid. When you don't understand cause and effect, you kind of look kind of dumb, to be honest, because we all know there's decision and there's consequence. Now, that might be good 9/10 of the time, but it might be bad too. And as an adult, it's your job to kind of discern those things. So let's get into this. Harry is frightened and feels the only person who could do anything about it is his father, which is the blackmail. He's blackmailing his father, going, "We can't go to the UK because you won't give us security, even though we know you can't." And the article does acknowledge that, according to the Met, which has always been the case. They're still going on about it. This is just so unbelievably horrid of Harry and Meghan. They really are just kind of terrible people. And this kind of thing confirms it because they know this is a lie. They can't not know that this is a lie. They 100% know that. But they are desperate for what they want and they won't accept anything else. So it begins here. Prince Harry's desperation to protect his wife and kids has deepened his estrangement from his father, King Charles. Not, Oprah, Spotify, Netflix, the book. None of that. Interviews, various. None of that. None of that is the issue. No, no, no. It's Harry wants to protect his family. When the Duke of Sussex returned to the UK in May to celebrate the 10th anniversary of one of his proudest achievements, the Invictus Games, his father was notably absent from the ceremony. Yes, because Invictus is not a UK thing. It's not a royal thing. It's become a Harry thing. It's like this ridiculous conflation. And I know people on both sides do it, that somehow Invictus needs to be royal. It doesn't. Who gives a crap who's the head of it? As long as it's helping raise awareness, that's all that matters. It doesn't really matter because like people are keep saying that Mike Tyndall should be the patron. I'm like, why? He doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to exist within the royal sphere. And at this point, too, the Invictus Games, in my opinion, is a money pit. So nobody really needs to be part of it. But his father does not need to be there to represent the UK troops because guess what? Only 50 members of the UK team actually participated. 50 out of the tens of thousands, perhaps even millions. There's like 19 or something million Americans who are veterans now, like 17, 19 million. So let's say the British, let's say at the most 5 million who are veterans or something, or 1 million. The Victus Games represents a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of those people. It does not encompass the whole thing because Harry has made it unable to do that because of his own actions. So it says the two were unable to meet during Harry's visit, which the prince's spokesperson attributed to the king's full schedule. Because yes, he has a big boy job, which is being king. However, sources close to Harry suggest a deeper issue. Harry wanted to discuss his ongoing battle for security, which he has been fighting for in court for more than 4 years, and believes Charles has the power to reinstate. Buckingham Palace will not comment on security provisions, but a palace source tells people the notion that Harry's security is in Charles's hands is wholly incorrect, which is correct. Charles has no control over this. It's the government. It's the government has control over this. And it can't be changed just because Harry thinks he's important. And just because Harry and Meghan have some risks, some of that is self inflicted because of their own stupid decisions. Nobody should be required to pay for their stupid. I've said this time and time again. Why is anybody paying for a dude who told the world how many Taliban terrorists he supposedly killed? Why should we pay for him? Why? Why? If he's the one who was stupid enough to tell the world that, why should we pay for him? Because he's like, oh no, now my security risk with the Taliban has increased. I'm like, but you were the one who said it. Nobody told you you had to say that. Harry and Meghan do this constantly, or Meghan's, fake bow to the queen in Netflix or whatever. And they have made themselves so unlikable that yes, maybe they do get more negative chatter on social media, and which hardly ever turns into real life situations. So it's just chatter on social media. I deal with it too. I've had some pretty nasty things done and written about me on social media. So, but it hasn't turned into anything real. So I think the same holds true probably for Harry and Meghan. But to hold this over Charles's heads and the rest of the royal family and basically blame them is cowardly, it's spiteful, it's vengeful, it's ugly. Harry and Meghan are ugly human beings. That's the only answer you can have because his father can't change this. Yes, maybe his father can have a voice, but he can't really move it. And how is it supposed to help Charles to go, well, my son who's living in California, who's not working for me, who actively undermines my government and what I stand for and all the things I'm trying to do. You know what? You really need to give him the security he wants. Yeah. Yeah. No, no, that's not how this works. That's not how this works. Harry has been undermining his father from the jump. And the UK government, why would you pay for a guy who's undermining your head of state? And I don't care what Harry says. He says, "Oh, I'm going to pay for the reality is, regardless of what Harry is going to quote unquote pay, the UK taxpayers will pick up the bill at some point. And if he gets his IPP status back, which again, it submits in here that he does want, and is also in a Telegraph article earlier this year as well, because they want this security clarification from the UK government so they can tell other countries how to treat them. Basically says they want everyone else to cover their security. Everyone else. Not them. Even though maybe they've made themselves a greater target, you must pay. The British government cannot justify that. They just simply can't justify it. And so it goes on. The family rift that became public in 2020, we already kind of knew there was issues. When Harry and wife Meghan Markle stepped back from their royal duties, has been marked by blistering attacks and unresolved tension from Harry and Meghan. Harry and Meghan have been offering the blistering attacks again and again and again. But for Harry, no single issue is a greater sticking point than that of security. Multiple well-placed insiders in his circle tell people in this week's exclusive cover story, which i.e. means Harry and Meghan. Harry and Meghan are telling the People magazine this. So if her security is really the issue, then why didn't he make arrangements for that before leaving? Why didn't he figure that out? Why didn't he realize that, you know what, they might pull that? Some of it I think is a bit construed with the Sandringham summit. But Harry and Meghan should have also gone through Mexit correctly, which is make their intentions known to the family, negotiate behind the scenes, then announce it. They're constantly do this stupid thing where they announce things and then deal with the consequences or then try to figure things out. That's stupid. I'll have a video coming up, and I was going to do this video today, and then this story dropped. But Meghan Markle, comparing Meghan Markle's brand launch, which is nothing, with Blake Lively's Blake Brown, which is her new hair care line that she said she's worked 7 years for. She's got 8 products. It's coming out next week, or 7 or 8 products coming out next week. Meghan Markle launched American Riviera Orchard 4 months ago, 4.5 months ago now. She has 0 products, 0 concept of a product. So we don't even know what the brand is going to be about. Comparing that and Blake Lively is just like, it's insulting. But that's what Harry and Meghan do. They announce things and then they figure everything out. It's a terrible approach. It's a horrific approach. It leaves them behind the 8 ball every single time. And then they have to deal with a mess. And then they blame everybody else for the mess. Well, there wouldn't be a mess if you had done it well. Princess Madeline actually initially to New York, then to Florida. She actually went back to Sweden for a bit in between, moved to Florida for 5 or 6 years, and then is moving back to Sweden. And she could still act on behalf of the Swedish government, but also lead a broadly private life. Barely anyone bothered her in Florida, partly because nobody knew who she was, but nobody bothered her in Florida. She went about her daily life. There is not really paparazzi. Yes, they would pop up from time to time, particularly from the Swedish papers, but she did her own thing in Florida. Nobody knew. Nobody knew. She was able to lead a private life, and she was able to do that and have good relations with her family because she worked with them. Harry and Meghan didn't, and then are pouting that things didn't go their way. And so it goes, despite a positive meeting with the father and son in February following the king's cancer diagnosis, their communication has since deteriorated. For those close to Prince Harry, say the monarch no longer takes his son calls or responds to his letters. He gets unavailable right now, says a friend of Harry's. His calls go unanswered. He has tried to reach out about the king's health, but those calls go unanswered too. Oh, no kidding. The guy who's gone on Oprah, Netflix, his book, multiple other interviews. Oh, you're surprised your father doesn't want to talk to you and share his personal medical data? I'm shocked. The Harry just comes across in so much of this as unbelievably dim. Like, no wonder nobody wants to talk to you, you fool, because you blab everything. You blab everything. So they don't want to talk to you, even if they have one instance where, oh, this is okay. They don't really want to talk to you. You have made it so that nobody wants to talk to you. I have 0 sympathy for Harry and Meghan. 0 sympathy. This is a mess of their own making. They need to clean up their own dirty diaper, as some people say, because this is a mess that they themselves have made. Nobody else forced them to do anything. Harry and Meghan did these things. They're the ones who have to live with the consequences. So it goes on. Amid the estrangement, Prince Harry remains deeply concerned for the safety of his wife and children, Archie and Lilibet, and has, according to sources, repeatedly asked his father for help. Okay, well, nobody asked Harry for you to reveal how many members of the Taliban you supposedly killed and that you rubbed cream on your penis while thinking of your mother. Nobody forced you to say those things. That's your problem. For Harry is frightened and feels the only person who can do anything about it is his father, a real insider tells people. Another source close to the situation says Harry is determined to protect his family at all costs. I think this has started with Meghan fueling his feelings of a savior complex. This is not actually in reality what should be going on. And the truth is, Harry and Meghan, I believe the most they would be at risk from are booze and maybe eggs in the UK. Nothing else. And you're telling me that you're so concerned about your safety that you won't go to the UK, but you'll go to Jamaica and Nigeria. Nigeria is one of the most corrupt countries on earth. Jamaica has like a level 3 travel warning from the states that basically says don't go. If you go to certain places, we can't help you. I imagine Nigeria is probably about the same. I haven't looked. And Meghan is fueling these delusions of paranoia. And what I found was really interesting, and I wish I'd talked about more, is Harry's interview that he did on ITV, Tabloids on Trial, which you can watch here. He makes a comment about, well, they keep calling my mother paranoid. And I think he's not upset they're calling his mother paranoid. I believe William told him the exact same thing. You're acting paranoid. And Harry has failed to realize that he is. This is delusional paranoia. And Yes, some of it is fueled by reality, but I think some of it is fueled by their desire to turn Meghan Markle into Princess Diana. And we all know that that story didn't end well. So why in the world are you trying to emulate or trying to like conjure up the same situation with Meghan that happened with Diana? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Do you not care about your wife, or are you guys so consumed with creating or recreating Diana's life and making Meghan the next Diana that you might end up with a bad situation in the process because you're so busy trying to fulfill the fantasy? I mean, it's serious. It is absolutely serious that that's probably where they're going in some ways, which is unbelievably stupid. It's so incredibly stupid, but they're not dealing with the full deck. And let's keep going. Now, the fight is boiling over in the ITV documentary Tabloids on Trial, which aired in the UK on July 25th. Prince Harry voices fears that the negative press could provoke a violent attack on his wife, not his children, interestingly, only on his wife. But yes, negativity on social media exists, but that doesn't mean it's going to turn into reality. That doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean that in the slightest. Yes, sometimes there are bad actors, but there are bad actors anywhere. The guy who allegedly tried to assassinate President Donald Trump apparently was barely on social media. So, like, that doesn't necessarily mean that because there's some negative things being said, that it's going to result in X. And people can talk negatively about someone, and it has nothing to do with what Harry is alleging. But he's portraying everyone with this unbelievably negative and ugly smear because yes, there might be one or two bad actors out there upon millions upon millions, but that doesn't negate the critiques of yourself and your wife. But you want to say that anybody who says anything negative about you has ill intention, which they don't. I'm just calling you out on your BS. That's what I'm doing here. I'm calling you out on your BS. And if you have an issue with that, then I think that's your problem, not necessarily mine. All it takes is one lone actor, he said. Same is true for anything, by the way. Same is true for anything. Anytime you go into a theater in the States, I think about certain things that I don't wish to think about. In malls, sometimes, if you hear a loud noise somewhere, you think about things because there are lone actors out there who are crazy. But that doesn't mean it'll happen. And that doesn't mean the UK government has to satisfy Harry's paranoia in order to make him be happy, citing these genuine concerns as his reason for not bringing Meghan, Archie, and Lily back to the UK. Well, he only mentions Meghan, not the kids. Not the kids. Harry has also taken his battle to the courts where he lost his bid to restore his taxpayer-funded security earlier this year. He has plans to appeal, which again, hopefully 100% he should lose. I think it's going forward more on like a technicality than like that he really, has a good shot at getting this whole thing overturned. Because again, the UK government can't really justify paying for him. And even if he says he pays for it, they're still going to pay for it, the UK citizens. And I have no doubt that if he, let's say he does get it, they'll probably amend the rules and say, no, you can't have, we can't justify it to soothe your paranoia. We can't. So it says exactly what is stopping Harry from securing the protection he seeks is a matter of bitter contention. Constitutionally, the monarch has no government power in the UK, and the power to bestow police protection lies with the Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures, REVIC, which operates on behalf of the UK government. Yes. And it says, but Harry, who's offered to personally cover the cost of security protection, was also rejected in court, feels that as king, Charles could intervene to ensure such protection is extended. And the issue has created an impenetrable wall between Harry and Charles. The conversation has now shifted from frustration to complete silence from the king, claims of the friend. Of course, because you can't reason with crazy. You cannot reason with crazy. So the royal family almost has to stop talking to him because they're like, we can't do anything about this, Harry. We've told you this 12 times. Stop asking us about it. Stop asking us, "Hey, can you give me X? I need security for X." You need to do that. You need to force the government to give me this. Charles is like, "No, I have bigger fish to fry than your delusions. I have bigger fish to fry than your delusions." And so they can't reason with crazy, so they can't talk to him. You can't talk and reason with crazy. So they just have to let him sit there. Like, that's all they can do. for their own sanity, at this point. And Revick has to look and is accountable to the public. Again, if Harry and Meghan, if there is a true legitimate security threat and an assessment is made and they determine that, they will get Met protection. But if there's no risk after an assessment, they're just like, no, we can't do anything. And Harry has come to the UK and been perfectly fine. Meghan Markle has come to the UK and been perfectly fine. So I think this is something that's not based in reality and based in fantasy. In fact, I would say Harry is more annoying than the two of them. I think Harry's security risk is probably a bit more than his wife's because he's becoming the turd as much as she is. Like his popularity is slightly better than hers. So is that the reason why she's at greater risk? Is that he's more popular? Well, Andrew's the most popular and Andrew's living in the UK and he is perfectly fine. So I think you guys will be too. Sources close to Harry and Meghan have established a new life in Montecito say the palace is mindful of what happened when Princess Diana left the royal life and instantly eclipsed the institution. This is so rude. Charles's fear is a repeat of the past. When his wife divorced the institution, she took the headlines, overshadowed his work, and became a global superstar. Seeing his son leave with his wife was not part of the plan. And then, so they don't say it explicitly, but they're basically saying that Harry and Meghan are the superstars. They're not. They're the source of mockery and derision. There are so many channels that openly mock Harry and Meghan, more than ones that are positive for them. Why? Because people don't like them. They've even done multiple polls in the States. Nobody likes the two of them. A very small segment of the population, like a third or something, which is pretty big, I will say. A third to 40%, maybe, if I'm being generous, actually actively like them. Others are ambiguous or actively dislike them. So they're not global superstars because they also as well haven't created anything. And here's the thing, I've said this time and time again, Harry and Meghan generate a lot of noise in the headlines, but not a lot of return. Not a lot of return. They've already lost $15+ million from Spotify because at most, I would imagine they only got $5 million out of that deal. At most. Most of that went to building a podcast studio in her home, which she only used a handful of times, if at all, to create a Nails on a Chalkboard bad podcast. And they have Netflix, but the only thing that did well was basically their takedown of the royal family in Harry and Meghan, the reality TV show. They have two other things coming up. Polo documentary will most likely be a flop, and her cooking show, it'll be a hit or miss. And this is their last gasp of showing any ounce of creativity to the world and any ounce of success for the world. This is their last shot. After this, they got nothing except for exploiting the royal family more, which apparently was the whole point and all they can do in order to satisfy the things that they need. So let's go on. It says safety has always been a cornerstone of why Harry and Meghan say they decide to leave. Is it? Are we rewriting history again? Seriously? Yes. Yes, they are 100% rewriting history. I thought it was for privacy. I thought it was because they couldn't spread their wings in the royal family. But now it's safety. When they had Met security protection. So Met security protection wasn't worth while they were working royals, but now all of a sudden it's worth it while they're not working royals. Pick a stinking lane and narrative. Like this stuff, again, makes them look stupid. And it makes them appear that they think the public is stupid. And yes, there's a lot of, I would say, segments of the public that are ignorant on the intricacies of royalty. And again, that's part of the reason I started my channel because I wanted to explain some of these broader things that most people just don't know. And I can do that within talking about Harry and Meghan, how royal families function. And this is broad. This is broad across the board. I've seen this in every single royal family. Those who are not in the main line of the family, as the younger generation gets older, the older generation that's not in that main line slowly gets set off to pasture. And some go gracefully and some go kicking and screaming, like Prince Laurent in Belgium. And maybe you could say Princess Martha Louise in Norway, who speaks to angels and dead people. Anyways, so all royal families have these issues. But if safety was always the issue, then they should have cited that. But again, that doesn't even make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. And again, they're rewriting the narrative. And I did have a social media post, and I'm not sharing the username just because I'm really conscientious of the Sussex squad and how rude they've been to people. But if you did post this on Twitter, you should know. So it says, yes. So according to the source, we are to conclude that if he had free security from the beginning, he doesn't really have an issue with William, Catherine, Camilla, Charles, and the institution. So what he said in Spare Netflix is actually made up and didn't really matter at all. Yes, you could definitely say that because there's something here that's also just so awful that it's like, oh, oh, you really are just in it for the money, aren't you? So this paragraph goes on to say Meghan has cited negative press and the lack of royal support during her time as a working royal as the reason she contemplated ending herself, you could say, which I always think is just a manipulative ploy. My personal opinion is that isn't real. I think it was a manipulative ploy. You even see this. I pulled up a section of Spare. And Meghan Markle has done this manipulative tactic with Harry before, which is why I just have a hard time believing that it is true. Because after supposedly she was seen walking about in Kensington not too long after it was announced that they were dating. He came home and he found her inconsolable, sobbing, shaking. What is it? What has happened? She could barely get the story out. She dressed as I advised. She'd happily run anonymously up and down the supermarket aisles. As she rode the escalator, a man approached her. Excuse me, do you know where the exit is? And she was stopped out and everything. And it goes on. She's like, Med caught two cashiers sharing a horrible smile. And she walked outside straight into a group of four men with their iPhones aimed at her. She kept her head down, rushed up to Kensington High Street. She was nearly home when a horse-drawn carriage came rolling out of Kensington Palace Gardens, some sort of parade. The palace gate was blocked. She was getting forced to back along the main road where the four men picked up the scent and chased her all the way down the main gate, screaming her name, which we have zero evidence of, by the way. She finally got inside Nottingham Cottage. She phoned her best girlfriends, each of whom asked, is he worth it, Meg? Is anyone worth this? I put my arms around her and said, I'm so sorry. We just held each other. So I still became aware of the most delicious smells. I looked around. Hang on, you mean after all that, you still made lunch? I wanted to feed you before I left. Okay, so I just read that to go, I think Meghan Markle 100% manipulates Harry. And I think that was a manipulative ploy, in my personal opinion. And I don't really think it's based in what actually happened. She wanted to leave because she wanted the royal name, the royal title, the royal status to bring it to Hollywood to finally make her Hollywood dreams come true. But as it turns out, when she got there, she was still the same crappy actress she was when she left. And no amount of royal title is a magic wand. And it's not going to make you a better actress when you were a really crappy actress and you really didn't have any creative talent. And so that is coming to the forefront now. It says the couple feel like they didn't have a choice, says their friend. The only option was to leave for their sanity. I thought it was for their safety. I thought that was it. Again, changing things all the time. I do think they thought if they got out of this bubble, there would be less focus on them. They want more focus on them. Are you joking? They want focus on them all the time. It's why they leaked things all the time. I watched Royals for 10 years. It became a leaky freaking ship as soon as Meghan Markle walked into the picture. Leaks came everywhere. Everywhere. She was 100% leaking things, 150% leaking oodles and oodles of pieces of information. She 100% wanted the focus to be on her. The reality is, though, it's not. When it comes to the royal fold, yes, you get a bump when you first enter in, but she's the spares wife. At some point, she is going to be a background bit player, especially as she approaches what she is now essentially middle aged. And as she gets older and older, people will be less and less interested in her. And that's what she had an issue with. That's what she had an issue with. The writing was on the wall. She would never be as important as Catherine and Camilla, no matter how you could say great her fashion was, no matter how charismatic she thought she was. She's still a bit player in a much larger machine. And that's what she had an issue with. So on to say at the Sandringham Summit in 2020, she decided their fate as non-working royals, which again, they could have decided behind the scenes instead of jumping the gun. But of course, they're not creative planners. They're really not. Even though Meghan is all about attention to detail, they are really crappy planners, apparently. Attended by the future King Charles, Prince William, Queen Elizabeth, and staff, confident that their security would remain intact during their transition. Which, that was only like a year. So they would still have to figure it out either way. Court documents also reveal the Queen, who died in September 2022 at 96, deemed it imperative that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex to have effective security after their departure. Despite this, Harry was informed just weeks later that the police protection had been withdrawn. The Queen made it clear that effective security was necessary due to the threats against them, but somewhere along the line, There was interference. Yes, by the government who could not afford to pay millions upon millions of dollars to protect them in Canada, US, wherever they happened to go. They couldn't justify paying for that. Nobody could. So, of course, even if that's what she wanted, Queen Elizabeth has no constitutional power, as this article already said. So, she has no constitutional power. So, she could say, well, I think it's imperative for them to have it, but she has no control over it. The security downgrade, as it explains rightly, was ultimately enacted by Revic. Its membership includes the Home Office, the UK version of Homeland Security, the Metropolitan Police, and the Royal Household. Although the King has no direct involvement as Revic, his staff sits on the committee. A government spokesperson says they provide rigorous and proportionate security and do not disclose details, as doing so would compromise the integrity and affect individuals' security. They don't need it. And that's the reality, too. They don't need it. Harry, whose team notes that Sussex's annual threat assessment has not been updated by the government since 2019, perceives the roadblocks to be his father, even as the palace disputes this. Yes, it's not your father, Harry. It's partly you, and you made this decision, and you have to live with it. I don't understand why that is such a difficult concept for him to grasp, but that this is his problem. Revic's decision could have international implications as well. This is key. If the UK acknowledges the threat to them, other countries will likely follow suit in how they're protected. Harry and Meghan want us, the US taxpayers, to cover their protection. That's what they want. That's 100% what they want. They want us to cover their protection because they think they're so special and important. There is literally no reason that Meghan Markle needs to be driven around in Montecito by security guards. No reason. No reason. No one gives a crap. No one gives a crap. And that's because they're irrelevant. And the UK government would do better to just basically remove them from the line of succession, strip the titles, and say, we're done with it. That would eliminate a lot of this. Basically saying, well, they have no issue. So, and what happens if Harry's father dies? What happens if King Charles dies? So, are they still going to try to make the same stupid argument? Well, my brother's the king, so I need security because my brother's the king. No, that's not how this works. That's not how this works. Every family goes through this. As you get further down, things go away. It happened to Beatrice and Eugenie. They live in London and they are just fine. Other members of the royal family don't have 24-hour security protection. They're just fine. Yes, they live within the broader security apparatus of living on royal estates, but they don't get individual protection unless they're on an official royal duty or they're part of a big event like Trooping the Color or the coronation or something like that. Other members of the family walk around even though they have a connection to the king and they're just fine. They are just fine. You know, Harry and Meghan could eliminate a lot of this supposed threat by removing themselves from the equations, voluntarily giving up their titles, places in the line of succession, the titles for their children, and just living normally, like they think, like they say they want to. But again, maybe all that's also a lie. So it goes on to say, faced with covering their own security expenses and with other financial support from the king cut off, Harry and Meghan quickly struck deals to generate income when they came to the US in 2020, including Harry's lucrative book deal for his 2023 memoir Spare and the couple's 2022 Netflix documentary, Harry and Meghan. So, Harry and Meghan threw their entire family away for money, for security for the family they allegedly hate. Yeah. Try to logic that one out. And the problem is they have nothing to sell at this point. They have nothing to sell. They've basically gone through most of these deals now. They shared pretty much everything that's lucrative to share because, again, they kind of stupidly left too early. Like, if they were smart, they would have stayed in for a lot longer, gotten more stories that they could sell. No, again, they're not particularly bright people, neither one of them. And so it comes across here. And it's just horrible. So they couldn't get security that they wanted. So they're like, well, we have to make money because, again, we were too stupid to leave without a plan. Again, I will call that stupid because it is stupid. It is stupid. It was stupid to leave without a stinking plan and expect everyone else to pay. Because they said, oh, we're not going to take the sovereign grant, which was a small portion of what they got, mostly like for staff expenses and travel related to official royal duties. But no, they were 100% going to take Charles's money. You know, he's an almost 40-year-old man with one child and a wife at that point, and he wanted daddy to still pay his bills. Mhm. Mhm. Yep. And when daddy didn't pay his bills, He decided to try to blackmail his family by spilling all their dirty laundry. Yeah, that's a great guy right there. Great guy. Yeah. I mean, it's so funny the Sussex Squad go, "Oh, you guys just want Harry." I was like, "No, no, he is a, like, I don't know, they say beta male. He's like an omega male or something. There is nothing more unattractive than a guy who doesn't stick by his family. Because this point with Meghan and his immediate family right now is obsession. But with his broader family, like, he'll totally throw them under the bus. And at some point too, Harry and Meghan will probably throw each other under the bus. Because that's what happens when you have no scruples, is that you will do anything to get yourself ahead. So at some point, this is going to come around and bite them. And they'll probably bite each other because they may file for a divorce or something like that. And at this point, what do they have to lose? Because the only other thing they have to sell now is what's happened since. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that Meghan and or Harry could go into about the behavior of their spouse that would show them in a less than flattering light. And of course, would make them perhaps millions of dollars, because what they apparently seem unable to do is raise millions of dollars on their own. All they can do is spread hate about the royal family. That's all they can do. I mean, they're actively undermining the head of state of several foreign countries. That is what they're doing through all this nonsense. This stupidity has to end. The royal family has to act, because this won't stop. Harry has been clear here in this, because I believe, this is my personal opinion, that basically Harry and Meghan gave this story to People magazine. And it's an obvious follow-up to Tabloids on Trial and everything, and they're trying to get their story out there. So this will not stop for the royals until they stop it, until they make it impossible for Harry and Meghan to hold this over them. Basically saying, if they don't want to deal with us, that's fine. We don't want to deal with them either. So they're done. They're done. There's no connection to the royal family. They don't have titles anymore. We've stripped them. And yes, I know Charles can't technically do that, but he can make it apparent to the government that he supports this. And I think this would go ahead in the government. There are bigger fish to fry, but I also think having somebody constantly actively undermining your head of state is something that needs to be dealt with. And they're not doing that, because I think they just think it'll go away at some point. This proves to me that this is not going to go away, because Harry and Meghan still need to feed their security expenses, which I'm sure run into the millions of dollars per year, because they're deluded fools. And so they're just going to throw money at this. When they're going to the gym in Montecito, they need a security guard. They don't. Newsflash. It's a small community. If Kim Kardashian can walk around LA without security, Harry and Meghan can too, because Kim Kardashian is worth a heck of a lot more than they are. And she's walking around with a heck of a lot more jewelry and money and assets than they are. And I'm sorry, but nobody, I don't think, really cares that much about the king, knowing he has no power to target you. That just doesn't make any sense. It just really doesn't. So this is all a deluded fantasy by two fools who are just convinced that they are as important as the rest of the royals, because part of the reason they left is that it was told to them, basically, you're not as important as the other royals. And so because of that, they're enacting their revenge by trying to force the royals to treat them as if they would treat Catherine and William, which is just fundamentally incorrect. They can't treat them that way. Harry and Meghan are spares. They're constitutionally irrelevant. That has been the case from the moment they said I do. Before that, that was always the case for Harry. And that's the sad reality. And I know that hurts him, but that's how royals work. It says the key factor in their decision to move to California was Hollywood, of course, but they don't say that, was the ability to have armed private security in the US, say sources in their circle. That has nothing to do with your move to California. You can go anywhere in this country and have armed private security. Actually, you would be safer to, let's say, live in some places in the Midwest, the South, than California. They went to California because Meghan wanted to make it in Hollywood, because she couldn't really truly make it before. And so this was her grand return. Pointing to the daily social media threats, potential home intrusions, and alarming incidents such as a chaotic paparazzi chase in New York City in May 2023, which nobody believes really happened. Only, People magazine, which is paid to basically parrot them, actually believes that. Everybody else thinks that's absolutely insane. Potential home invasions can happen anywhere. Happens all the time to people. Unfortunately, happens a lot in California. You would actually be safer being elsewhere. And daily social media threats. What does that mean? Because that is a very broad, and it's not specific. And if they're just, and I would argue that this is what they're saying, any negative post about Harry and Meghan, they consider a threat. That's not what that is. And again, how much of that is actually coming up on day to day? Probably not much. They don't have a stalker on the royal Other celebrities have stalkers. They don't have one. They don't have one. And so, like, this is all paranoid delusions because Meghan is just so bummed that nobody cares as much about her as they do Catherine, the Princess of Wales. I mean, even, let's say, the guy who attempted to assassinate President Trump, who was he looking at pictures of? The Princess of Wales, not Meghan Markle, not a woman in his own country. He was looking at a woman in another country. Yeah. It says the UK government can acknowledges numerous threats against them, but we are not privy to the specific details due to lack of cooperation, says Joe Funk, Senior Vice President of Touchstone's Global Security, which oversees the couple's private protection in the States. Okay, so obviously, again, yes, if this guy, the senior president of their security, is talking to People Magazine, Harry and Meghan told him to talk to People Magazine. This, again, 100% a Harry and Meghan plant. And when was this acknowledged? Was it acknowledged in 2019, 2018? Was this acknowledged post the book? Or is this just like ramblings online? Like, what is this, the threat? And privy to lack of specific details due to cooperation because they're like, we might risk their security more by telling you because you guys tell everybody things online. Like, again, Harry and Meghan have compromised themselves so much that even the Met security can't tell them certain things because they risk Harry and Meghan leaking it to the press. Because Harry and Meghan, again, they are seeking a Diana situation. They are seeking and hoping and praying for something that they can tout as, oh, this is the grave threat against Meghan Markle. They're literally searching for this. 100%, that is what they were searching for. Who is fifth in line to the throne is also worried about the public safety when he is out, as well as the risk to his staff. Nobody cares, Harry. Nobody cares. The staff are concerned when they travel with them. No. Again, I criticize Harry and Meghan. Travel just fine. I don't care. I don't care. Vast majority of people don't. The fact that Harry and Meghan stepped away from the royal duty should not be a factor in their protection levels, says source close to the situation. Working royal or not, this is the king's son. That doesn't matter, though. He's not representing the head of state anymore. Doesn't matter. The queen's grandchildren didn't all get security. The queen's children didn't all get 24-hour security after a certain point. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. Doesn't matter that he's the king's son. He has no power, the king, like true power. He doesn't have any power to enact policy. He is the head of state. So he oversees things in terms of just being sort of a figurehead. He has soft diplomatic power, but he has no real power in some ways. And so again, this ridiculous notion that because he's a king's son, he gets security is foolhardiness and self-obsession. Neil Boss, a former head of counterterrorism for the Met Police, has spoken out about the fact that Meghan has faced serious threats while in the UK, knowing that both Harry and Meghan had amongst the highest threats assessments within the royal family, which was in 2019, not now. And again, what were those really? In recent years, various people have been arrested and imprisoned for making threats against the couple. Okay, so I don't like this. I hate this because it's vague and it has this broad smear that there were various people, that there are a lot. So there's two cases here. One is regarding a group of police officers who may have said some racist things in a private WhatsApp chat, which could be obviously highly inappropriate, but not really maybe something to be all that concerned about. And if it happened post-Brexit and you had the Oprah Winfrey interview and Netflix, they were talking about that. If Harry and Meghan had kept their mouths shut, maybe some of those conversations would not have come up. Not excusing that, just saying that that is the reality of the situation. And then the other is two wacko radio hosts who were making threats like white supremacists or something. They've been arrested and put in jail. Like those are like the handful. So at the most, maybe you have 7 people, but we don't know because maybe they haven't publicized it because they were able to keep things under wrap. How many threats Catherine deals with, William, George, Charlotte, Louis, Charles, Camilla. We have no clue how many threats they deal with because they keep them together. They keep them tight. And just because there are a couple of bad eggs does not mean there is this grand, grave threat. I mean, Charles has had eggs thrown at him at least twice since he's been king. You have so many stories, terrible stories about Catherine after her cancer diagnosis and after her surgery and everything. So again, why are Harry and Meghan so special? The answer is they're not. But I think part of it too is that Harry and Meghan, through their own actions, have increased the toxicity towards them and now want us to pay for that because they increase the toxicity towards themselves. It says Harry's military service, his global recognition, and his marriage to a mixed race woman all contribute to his high threat level, boss tells people. So, again, this is all about the racism narrative. Meghan Markle is a victim and she must be protected because she is under such a grave threat because of the woman that she is. I just, again, don't find any of that compelling. And yes, there are certain segments of the population where that is, but in the like that's a teeny tiny fraction. People just don't like Meghan Markle because she's not all that likable in many ways. She appears to be two-faced, manipulative. She disrespected the royal family on numerous occasions since marrying in. And so if that is the reason why the security threat has been increased, that's on to Harry and Meghan. Like, again, nobody told Harry to tell us how many people in the Taliban he killed. Nobody told him that he needed to tell us that. We did like nobody was searching for that information. And when it comes to Meghan, yes, maybe in a small, very backwards group in the world that might matter, her heritage. But honestly, I think at this point, most people don't care because they've gotten to know her and they still don't like her. And that has nothing to do with her race and everything to do with her personality. With both sides firmly entrenched and Harry's brother, Prince William, seemingly aligned with his father, as he should be because he is the heir, any hope of reconciliation appears distant at best. Some sources close to the palace suggest that Harry's memoir and public interviews have compromised the family's trust in him. Oh, no, really? Seriously? Are you kidding? No wonder. Like, duh. Others close to Harry countered that if he had proper security, he wouldn't have needed to speak publicly in order to help pay for it. If the matter of security is resolved, says the family, it's swords down. So Harry's going to keep doing this, and Meghan is going to keep doing this until they get the security that they want. This is 100% blackmail. 100%. This is blackmail. This is blackmail. And it is ugly. It is horrid. It is a terrible practice of Harry and Meghan. It makes them look like awful human beings. And it's not going to help matters because the royal family has no control over this. That's again what's so stupid about this situation. Oh, it's so terrible. Indeed, nothing would give Harry more happiness than being able to rekindle the bond with his father. At the end of the day, as a friend, you can't undo bloodlines. He's not asking his dad for a nicer house or nicer cars. He's asking because of the reality of the situation. He is at risk. It's hard to underestimate and understate what Harry and Meghan are doing here. They are 100% using the confidences of Harry's family to blackmail them, to give them something that the royal family has no power to give them. Ergo, Harry and Meghan are going to continue the cycle because they need money to pay for the security that his daddy's not going to give him. So they are going to do this kind of thing time and time and time again. It's the royal family's responsibility now to put an end to this because Harry and Meghan are clearly not. Every time they need money, they're going to speak out. Every time they need money, a little bit more to pay the bills. So we can know when things are getting a little tight for Harry and Meghan because they're going to release something else about the royal family. So maybe we can attest right now, the tabloids on trial. Part of it is because they need more money. They need more money. And so they're going to throw their family under the bus time and time and time again until they have nothing else to pull from. And they're going to start making things up. I have alleged this way a long time ago, is that when they run out of actual allegations to make, they're going to start to make things up because they have to keep the gravy train rolling. They have nothing else. Even if the cooking show or the polo can make them some money, you even get the sense here that they know they're flops, that the only thing they have to sell is the connection to the royal family. And they're going to do that time and time and time again because they need the money, because they're too inept to make money any other way than selling out the family. I mean, it's horrid. It's awful. It's terrible. And the royal family has to act. This is telling the royal family, you need to act. And I've told them this. Obviously they don't take my opinion or advice, but it's like Harry and Meghan aren't going to stop because they don't care. They don't care at the end of the day. So you're the one who's gonna, if Harry's so consumed with his status as a prince, thinking that's a security risk for him, well, then eliminate that. Eliminate that. Take him out of the line of succession. Change his title. Make it clear to the world that, oh, and Harry is like, oh, you think that you're at security risk? Well, yeah, we just minimized that for you, bud. Yes, you might be the son of the king, but your kids and you don't have any place in the line of succession. You're totally removed from the UK government and everything. Like, you're good now, right? Right? Unless again, this really truly is all about money. And Harry and Meghan, even if they're stripped of everything, will continue to try to raise money by defaming his family because as it turns out, they're really crappy creatives. And all of Hollywood knows it at this point, and they have nothing left to sell. Nothing left to sell but their connection to the royal family. And so they will do that time and time again in order to blackmail the family into doing something that they have no power to do. And so the only way for the royal family to take back the situation is to take back the power. And they have most of the power in this situation. If Harry's so worried about being a prince that that's going to increase his security risk, well, we can make you not a prince anymore, Harry. How about that for you? Would that help eliminate your security risk you're so concerned about? I think that would. But that's going to be a drastic decision the family has to make. But I think they're going to have to make it because you cannot reason with crazy. And Harry and Meghan are crazy and deluded, and no sort of logic is going to help the royal family out in this situation. They have to take a hard line, and that's not going to be easy. But I think they can do it. And I think they'll have the British public behind them. So, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts about this horrid attempted at blackmail. It is really a terrible day within the royal family for sure to have this confirmation out there, which we always kind of knew, but now it's confirmed. So, royal family, act now. So, guys, thank you again for watching, and I shall see you soon. Bye.